Hello and welcome back everyone. So today's video I decided we can have a look at some E-MINI S&P price action on the high time frame, and then we'll go down onto a lower time frame. Then we'll jump over to Bitcoin and we'll see what's been happening over the past week. And I'll just give you some of my ideas or what I'm thinking about, how I'm looking at price and how I'm using ICT concepts to frame price action. And I'll do the same here on the E-MINI S&P 500. So there's a few important things that I want to point out here. The first one being this dealing range. So this is our hard time frame dealing range, where we take sell side liquidity and we rebalance here. So this was the rebalance of this gap and taking out buy side. Right, so this gives us our hard time frame dealing range. So within this hard time dealing range, we expect price to reach for internal liquidity. Now for me, internal liquidity is marked at a fair value gap over here, basically above this this impulse move. So where we had this distribution and price higher, we left this gap. All right, so on the 15-minute and 1 hour, this is a fair value gap. So we have revisited it 1, 2, 3 times. So what can happen is if we revisit the gap on multiple occasions, essentially weakens it. Okay, you can think about it like that. So you expect the next time that price comes down here, that it will at least go below that most significant low. Okay, so I expect if price does come back down this way, that we do run, which would essentially be sell side liquidity, potentially fill this gap, even make our way down to the swing low. So these are and ultimately this will be our external range liquidity. So this would be another area of interest where prices are likely to move to in the future, because you must think about it as that price is moving internally, and now its next goal, you should say, on at least a high time frame, is to move to external liquidity, okay, which is above these relative equal highs and these relative equal lows. Okay, so that's on your high time frame. Those are some of the areas you can write down and note as important areas to consider. Then I want to point everyone's attention to this breakaway gap here. Now this for me is going to be an intermediate term goal. Now, according to ICT, breakaway gaps don't need to be filled right away, and they can be revisited later after some lower term time frame a significant level has been tagged. In this case, we also have what would amount to a breaker block on this down close candle, right? Because you have a higher high, then you have a lower low, and then you have a higher high, and then price breaks down, which makes this candle here a breaker. So if you extend that out in time, often we expect price to revisit. If price revisits this breaker block area, we can expect a reaction. I suppose this is also like traditional support to flip resistance logic. So this is also an intermediate term goal. Now, as I said, we've already come up into the fair value gap, which is the breakaway gap. Just tagging it is enough. So that doesn't mean we have to go all the way up and fill it. So this might be enough as is, and we might continue our way down. Just a note is that today's Wednesday. Right now, because we are bullish on the week, we can have buy models on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then going into Thursday and Friday, we're likely to make the high of the week. This is a statistically probable outcome where you have trending days on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and on Thursday, or if not Friday, you have the reversal, which gives us reason to suspect that we might have one more day, potentially overnight, and target the top of the breakaway gap, and perhaps a reversal on Thursday. Now that is an idea, something to think about. So with that in mind, we're going to go down to some lower term time frame price action. The first thing I want to do is frame this important range that we're currently dealing in. Right, so it's from this one, from this swing low here, created on Tuesday, up to this swing high created here now in the afternoon on Wednesday. So this is going to be a very important dealing range for us at the moment. Why? Is because we've run buy side liquidity here, which means that we've attacked external range liquidity above the swing high, which gives us a target for internal range liquidity. Because we've already tapped external range liquidity, now we're very likely to at some points reach back down here. We have a fair value gap on the 1 hour, which is also internal range liquidity marked by relative equal lows. So this is definitely an important area to keep your eye out for, and potentially an area that's going to be raided at some point. Now with that in mind, we have a fair value gap on the 5 minute, which is currently I should say, and I should emphasize, holding as a bit of support. Okay, we did make our way down, and we are within a bullish market structure. Price is unwilling to go lower, so it is entirely reasonable to suspect that we run overnight, we run into that breakaway gap. So that is two scenarios to consider. The first being that the algorithm reprice up higher and fills the breakaway gap in the evening, or we continue our way down and we set up a run on liquidity below these equal lows sometime tomorrow morning. And we could use that as the sort of catapult for a leg higher, or we just continue down. So that's all I want to talk about for the E-mini, and next we're going to move on to Bitcoin. Okay, so on Bitcoin, I have two important fair value gaps that I've marked out on the chart here. The first one being this 4-hour fair value gap, which is internal range liquidity for this higher time frame range, which is going to be this one here. Okay, let me just change that. Okay, so that is internal range liquidity, which was tapped on last week Thursday. You can see we filled the gap really nicely here, and we still got a bit of a gap. Where we ran this, I think this was on Sunday. So just an important note about Sunday, I'll come back to it now, but there's an interesting phenomenon that can happen on Sundays, which I was pointing out on my Twitter. So I'll get back to that in a second, but we'll just carry on here. So that's all I really want to talk about for the high time frame price action on Bitcoin. Just a note, so we have tagged internal range liquidity marked by this fair value gap on a 4-hour. So we would expect the next high time frame target to be external from this current range, which means that we are looking at targets above that swing high and targets above the swing low for high time frame targets, right? Okay, awesome. So the next thing we're going to do is go down to some medium-term time frame price action. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what is this red shaded box area? Well, This is a traditional dealing range, okay, marked with a 50% equilibrium. I've added to it external targets for the dealing range. Now the 0.236 Fibonacci level, particularly in Bitcoin, can be used as targets for external range liquidity moves. There's quite extensive backtesting and logic that goes behind this particular Fibonacci when considering a range. So I would suggest people backtest it themselves, or they can have a look at it. But for now, keep these levels in mind. You can draw them out on your own chart and just mark where the 0.236 is giving you targets. Okay, it's 21,500 and 1,800. So these are nice round numbers, they're psychological numbers as well. And unique to Bitcoin, they are significant Fibonacci levels. Awesome. So we have our dealing range here. Swing high, swing low. Price quickly gets rejected after removing relative equal highs here, and quickly fills the imbalance that was left from this distribution, as you can see here. And then you have some sideways action over the weekend. Now, let me go down on to, this is Saturday, this is Sunday. I was pointing out on my Twitter on Saturday how we were likely to run Saturday's highs on Sunday. So let me go to my profile, I'll show you what I mean. So this was Saturday's price action. So I was just talking about how we were likely to run liquidity. Sunday's liquidity run on previous day high, which was Saturday's high. This is something that you'll find happens quite often on Sunday. From about 7 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you have this sort of like quite big candle ranges, and price can run for external liquidity. And oftentimes that happens on Sunday. So you'll see how you ran the buy side here on Sunday, and if you have a look, yeah, you could do that on your own charts. Have a look last week Sunday. So if you have a look on the 26th, go back to the 26th and have a look how after 7 o'clock price quickly ran for some buy side liquidity. It's really interesting, and actually set the sell model for the week. So another thing I would like to point out is we had Asia range on Monday. Yep, that's it. So gave us nice targets down for the downside and for the upside. And so this reversal came in line with the SMT divergence we had between S&P and the NASDAQ. So you can have a look at ICT's latest video. He discussed that S&P divergence and relative strength leader. So you have the Asian range on Monday giving nice targets for Tuesday's price action. And after that you create, so you create this this range, right? Because you took out relative equal highs here. So you create a range here. So let's just go ahead and turn that into a range. So this is pretty interesting right now. Let's have a look at the time. Going on 6 o'clock. All right, so you ran buy side liquidity at 6 o'clock. Statistically, you do have potential to see negative sort of price action between 6 and 7 o'clock. So let's have a look here. Let's go down to Awesome. Let's see how that plays out. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that running for at least 1 hour. So this is almost at my target, and I just kind of want to exit this trade because I want to carry on with the video. Let's see if it can play out any. I'll let it play out a little bit longer, see if we reach that target. In my opinion, it does look like the selling, it doesn't really look like it wants to go lower. Yeah, I think I'm going to exit that. That's fine, let's exit that. Right, sorry for that little bit of a detour, but I really was compelled to take that trade. We had run buy side liquidity, and it was just during a time where I thought that statistically prices are likely to go down. So well, it's completely reasonable to hold this trade. One of the things that I noticed is, look at the CVD going down here, but price is not really following. You have some open interest here. So you do have, you see how this open interest is increasing here on negative delta. Price is barely moving down. That's probably a first sign that this is an area where there is a little bit more interesting buying. So, or it's repriced low enough and maybe wants to go a bit higher. But it's definitely reasonable to hold this trade till at least 9 o'clock, or sorry, 7 o'clock. Another thing to consider though about Wednesday is that from 8 o'clock till midnight, you're gonna have probably quite choppy price action. It's gonna be quite difficult trading. But anyway, let's get back to the charts. Right, sorry for that little bit of a detour, but I really was compelled to take that trade. We had run buy side liquidity, and it was just during a time where I thought that statistically prices are likely to go down. So, well, it's completely reasonable to hold this trade. One of the things that I noticed is, look at the CVD going down here, but price is not really following. You have some open interest here. So you do have, you see how this open interest is increasing here on negative delta. Price is barely moving down. That's probably a first sign that this is an area where there is a little bit more interesting buying. So, or it's repriced low enough and maybe wants to go a bit higher. But it's definitely reasonable to hold this trade till at least 9 o'clock, or sorry, 7 o'clock. Another thing to consider though about Wednesday is that from 8 o'clock till midnight, you're gonna have probably quite choppy price action. It's gonna be quite difficult trading. But anyway, let's get back to the charts. Where we are at the moment is that we have this range set up and we have external range liquidity. Over here. And we have external range liquidity down here. So, and just above us, we have a higher target external range liquidity. So this definitely is a draw on liquidity, and this would be considered perhaps the easier target, right? Because price is a bit bullish, but when we see this sort of building up, what tends to happen is you have a lot of stops sort of building up at each of the lows. This can sometimes cause a cascade run downwards. So you can have a situation where price comes up here, and then very likely, now if it does break the market structure, it's going to very quickly cause a cascade, and liquidations. And you're going to have price quickly moving down. That is a scenario that happens quite a bit on Bitcoin. Something to keep in mind. Awesome. And there was just one more thing that I wanted to point out, this fair value gap we had on a 1 hour chart. So price rebalances the range, like I said, on the 1 hour chart, that internal range liquidity with the fair value gap. So we have reached internal range liquidity for this dealing range. So you do expect a move to the upside, perhaps targeting external range liquidity, and then maybe move back in. And I think that's all I want to cover today. So it was just basically a recap of the last few days price action on the E-MINI and Bitcoin, and I hope everyone learned a little something today. And if you have any questions, please leave them below and I'll get back to you. And anyway, have a great rest of the week. So cheers.